yourselves to leave the prison wall. Show some love. Hold each other.
Welcome to the Princess Pat Akpabio Show. On this show, we change minds and change attitudes on how you perceive things in life generally. In life, we have so many questions but fewer answers concerning certain issues that we are facing. And that's why I'm here, to give you the kind of answers that you may be looking for the questions that you have. I am your friend, I am your sister, I am your coach. I'm here to make your day a blissful one. Welcome.
We are changing minds and changing attitudes.
You are watching the Princess Pat Akpabio Show.
In this particular episode, I will be discussing with you sex and society.
Changing minds and changing attitudes.
I'm just thinking about that topic. And funny enough, you know that I had actually written an article about sex and society, and you could find it at my website, www.lifewithpat.com. When we're talking about sex and society, it is a known fact that societies differ remarkably in what they consider socially desirable and undesirable in terms of sexual activity, and consequently differ in what they attempt to prevent or promote when it has to do with sex. Well, how did you grow up? Because I remember when I was growing up, and there were so many myths that we had growing up from our parents about sex, that as we were growing up, a whole lot of things was going through our mind out of being inquisitive. One of the things that I always was inquisitive about was when I saw a pregnant woman, and I would ask the question, so how are babies made? And I remember the question or the answers that I used to get as of that time. I got one of the phoniest answers, such as that when you drink a lot of water, that you're going to get pregnant and you're going to have babies. And so I grew up drinking a lot of water. So the first thing I did that day, just imagine, I sat down and drank so much water. I felt sick. My tummy was so full, I couldn't even eat as of that time. I remember that day I was told that when you touch a man, as much as a touch, you will get pregnant. Don't even act like you don't even know what I'm talking about, because I know that a lot of us growing up had so many funny things about sex and society and the things that we were being taught as little kids, preteens, then we became teenagers, and then we now started reading books, and then in school, it was taught, especially if you schooled in the neck of the woods that I school. Well, almost every scholar that has a sexual or a sex discipline has agreed that sex is a crucial part of a human existence on Earth. And there is just no way that we could live on planet Earth without having to deal with sex. And it is just impossible for men to separate itself from the lure of sex. The question to you is, how do you define sex, and what is sexually desirable to you? What is sexually accepted to you today? Because that's what I want to particularly deal with today on this particular show. The negative things that we've heard about sex. Well, when it comes to sex in the marital context, sex is an enjoyment. It was created by God, given to mankind to enjoy themselves and to consummate a relationship and make it what it is. I consider sex to be a bond between a man and a woman, where you get to express how you feel for yourself. And I believe that at that point, when there is consummation between a man and a woman, that is when a man gets to actually express himself to the woman. And I mean actually in a marriage context here. But well, don't get it twisted now before somebody said you're not being real. I'm being very real as possible. I understand that even unmarried people, young people are having more sex than married people. But when you look at the sexual beliefs and sexual expressions that we have in our world today, we have the other people who believe in same-sex marriage. All right. And of course, in the United States, they've actually put it into law where same-sex marriage is actually legal. Well, let's take it to the Asian country and of course to the African country. In Asian country, sex and society is relatable in part where they see it as a mental issue. In the Asian country, Same-sex relationship is criticized. Like when I mean criticized, I mean it is criticized. And these people face discrimination and stigmatization. And of course, it's the same thing in Africa. In China, for instance, homosexuality is declassified as a mental illness. But in America, it is legal. It is okay. They see it as being okay. There is nothing wrong with it. In Africa, you will end yourself with 14 years imprisonment for that. So in different societies, sex is seen differently in different contexts as well. The more totalitarian a government is, the more they are going to restrict and direct sexual activity. We were talking about Asian in the African context here. Now, different countries, different society, different nations have their own restriction where sex is involved. And sex has negative and it also has positive side. Let's look at the negative side of sex. Having premarital sex before marriage comes with a lot of responsibilities. Pregnancy, sexually transmitted diseases. You could get STI from having unprotected sex in today's world. And so it is important that whatever you're doing, that you protect yourself and you take care of yourself. And understand that once you get pregnant, you stand a risk of being a young mother. Are you ready for that responsibility? What about if you are infected with gonorrhea, syphilis, or candidiasis? How would you deal with that? There's a lot of things that goes on in the human body that sometimes we don't even know that we abuse. And you'd start taking antibiotics that is actually not going to solve the problem because it wasn't prescribed by a doctor. So you're taking self-medicated antibiotics to take care of what you don't even know is going on with you. You need to understand the human bodies. I'm not a medical doctor now or a science person, but you need to understand that people's body component is completely different from another. So what antibiotic might work for your friend might not work for you. Getting pregnant. Are you ready to be a mother? Are you ready to be a father? Because at the end of the day, you can end up with an abortion that might end up disrupting, messing up your whole life, that you will end up childless. You become sterile, you can have a child. And at the end of the day, you start looking for prayer houses, you start calling people witches and wizards, you start saying all manner of things to people, all in the name of you cannot have a child, you cannot conceive, or you have low sperm count. We're talking about sex and society here. Yes, there's a lot of things going on in the society today where pornography is on the streets. A lot of things are going on the street that is negative to children. Children are seeing pornography. Children are being exposed to pornography. This all have negative effect on children, even as they are growing up. TV. What we see on TV today, sex sells. Everything is sex sells. But I can tell you that you don't have to go the way that everybody else in the society is going. You can actually take a path for yourself where you know what the importance of sex is and the value of sex. Right now, people have so trivialized sex that they don't even value sex. I believe that they can buy it with money. I can get it on the street. I'm sure you can. But trust me, God created sex to be enjoyed in a marital institution. And so a lot of things are coming into our society today where people just allow it to make it happen. People selling themselves, all in the name of what? Making money, in the name of providing for themselves. And of course, we all know that prostitution has been the oldest profession since inception of the world. But do we have to continue in that way that grace may abound? The answer is no. That we could actually change that life. We could actually live a better life for ourselves. We could value sex because sex was meant to be enjoyed by two marital people. All societies have faced the problem of reconciling the need of controlling sex with that of giving it adequate expression. And all have solved it by some combination of cultural taboos, permission, and injunctions. Well, it is just of recent in the African culture, in the society, that we have seen where expressing yourself openly, where you kiss publicly, has gotten some form of acceptability. Before, as I was growing up back in the 80s and the 90s here in Nigeria, it was actually frowned upon. You wouldn't even see that. You'll be labeled, you'll be called all manner of names, and some sort of name that you don't even want to like. Think about it. You remember a time that you were growing up and then maybe you had a friend who's a boy and you're holding hands and you're just walking about, oh Lord, you're not going to get home. By the time you get home, your report has gotten home to your parents. Your mother has gotten wind of it, or your father, or somebody, some adult in your family has gotten the information that they saw you holding hands with a boy and you were working home. They should check you because you might get pregnant just holding hands. Taboo. It was seen as a taboo. It was never accepted. My question to you right now at this point, should society have a say, interfere on how we choose to relate with one another sexually?
Change your minds and change your attitude.
Sex devalues the woman, where a lot is being given to man in terms of credit of what a man can do with his body. You would hear something like, you know what you're doing, right? It's a man's world. He's a man.
Things are never what they seem to be. Changing minds, changing attitudes. Bring ourselves to live a peace and one. Changing minds, changing attitudes. Bring ourselves to live a peace and one. Show some love, hold each other's hands. In confidence we'll make the world a better place. We are changing minds and changing attitudes.
You are watching the Princess Pat Akpabio Show.